had always loved the little pizzeria on the corner of my street. It was the kind of place that smelled like melted cheese and garlic bread from 2 blocks away, and the walls were plastered with faded posters of old cartoons and sports teams. The neon sign flickered a little at night, giving it a kind of nostalgic charm, like a place that had existed forever. That night, I thought I was just grabbing a late slice of pizza before heading home. I had walked in around 11 p.m., the place nearly empty except for a man sitting alone at a corner table, hunched over a laptop. The air smelled warmer than usual, thick with tomato sauce and grease. I was halfway through ordering when I noticed it. The lights overhead flickered, then dimmed for a second, and the music, cheerful pop, cut out entirely. Must be a power surge, I muttered to myself. The cashier, a teenager with a nose ring and a bored expression, didn't even look up. "Extra pepperoni?" I said, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. I wandered over to a table in the back, away from the man in the corner. The fluorescent bulbs above buzzed faintly, like tiny whispers. I sat down and tried to scroll on my phone to distract myself, but the signal was dead. No bars at all. That was weird, I always had service here. Then I noticed movement from the kitchen. Not the normal hustle of cooks tossing dough and sliding pies into the oven. This was deliberate, slow, almost deliberate stalking motion. I thought maybe someone was carrying a heavy tray, but the shadow didn't match anything I could recognize. It lingered by the doorway just outside the line of sight, and I could have sworn it was looking at me. I laughed nervously. "I'm just tired." My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. "Don't move." I froze. The room seemed colder suddenly. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I scanned the empty tables. The cashier had vanished. The man in the corner laptop wasn't there anymore. Just shadows stretching across the walls. Then a hand clamped over my mouth from behind. Strong, unyielding. I struggled, but the grip only tightened. My chair tipped over, and I crashed to the floor. The last thing I saw before they dragged me toward the kitchen was the flickering neon sign outside, painting the room in sickly red and green. The next thing I knew, I was in the back room. Not the kitchen, I don't even know what to call it. It was windowless, with a low ceiling and walls stained with something dark I couldn't identify. A single, bare light bulb swung above me, casting jagged shadows that seemed to reach for me. I was shoved into a chair. My hands were bound behind my back, and a damp cloth was pressed to my mouth. The smell was overpowering. Something metallic mixed with the lingering scent of pizza. My mind raced, trying to figure out why this was happening. I had no enemies, no debts, no reason anyone would want me like this. Footsteps approached, slow, deliberate, heavy. I caught a glimpse of the person. It was a man, wearing a stained apron like he had been working in the pizzeria all night. But his eyes, they were strange, empty, almost like they weren't his own. He didn't speak, just stared. Then the whisper came, from somewhere behind me, or maybe from inside my own head. "You shouldn't have come here alone." I tried to scream, but the cloth muffled everything. My heart slammed against my ribs as he circled me, each step making the floorboards groan. He pulled out a knife, not brand new, but sharp enough that the edge caught the light. "Please," I managed to croak. I don't know what you want." He leaned in close. I could feel his breath on my ear, rancid and warm. "Not what I want. What we want," he whispered. Suddenly, the light bulb above me flickered violently, and for a brief second, I thought I saw dozens of eyes staring at me from the shadows, all blinking in unison. When the light stabilized, I was alone again. Just the man, the chair, and the knife. And that's when I realized the back door was gone. Couldn't see the door. Not anywhere. I knew it had to be there somewhere. Pizzerias don't just disappear, but it was like the room itself had swallowed it whole. My mind raced. Panic clawed at me, hot and suffocating, making it hard to think. The man with the knife didn't move. He just stood there, breathing slowly, watching me. I realized he wasn't even blinking, not once. His eyes, they were blacker than anything I had ever seen, like deep pits that pulled the light out of the room. I had to move, I needed to escape. I tried to kick the chair over, hoping to throw him off balance, but it didn't budge. My hands were tied too tightly behind me. I could barely wiggle my fingers. Then I noticed something even worse. The floor. It wasn't just wood. Shifted. Not physically exactly, but the planks seemed wrong. Some were deeper, others higher, and the shadows along the edges looked alive, writhing in ways a shadow never should. I swallowed hard, my stomach turning. That's when I heard it, scratching. Not nails on wood. Something heavier. Something that didn't belong. It was coming from the walls, from the ceiling, from everywhere. My blood ran cold as a chorus of faint whispers rose behind me. They weren't words I could understand. Not quite, but I knew they were talking about me. I screamed into the cloth, thrashing, but the man didn't flinch. Then he did something I'll never forget. He tilted his head like a predator studying prey, and with a slow, deliberate motion, he set the knife on the table in front of me. Then he vanished. I froze. My heart pounded. I couldn't tell if he had left or just blended into the shadows. I dared a glance around the room. It had changed. The walls seemed longer, stretching farther than they had a second ago. The light bulb flickered again, and I saw movement in the corners. Shapes crawling, shifting, almost human, but wrong. Something brushed against my leg. Cold, slimy. I screamed again. A figure emerged from the darkness. Not the man. Something smaller, crouched, with a twisted grin and eyes too large for its face. It whispered, breathy and wet, finally fresh. I tried to pull away, but the ropes held me like iron. The thing reached for my face with a clawed hand, and the smell hit me. Rotting meat, decayed flesh, a metallic tang that made my stomach lurch. And then I heard it, the faint hum of pizza ovens. I froze. It didn't make sense. This wasn't the kitchen anymore. There was no fire, no warmth. Yet the smell of burnt cheese and dough filled the room. The hum grew louder, almost chanting. The shadows twisted again, forming shapes that weren't human, weren't animal, something in between. I realized then, I wasn't in the pizzeria anymore. At least, not the one I had walked into. The man returned, carrying another knife, but this one was different. Bigger, curved. It gleamed in the flickering light, and when he set it down in front of me, I noticed something etched into the blade. Words, scratched deep enough to catch the light. Eat or join us. My chest tightened. I didn't understand what that meant, but I knew one thing for certain. I was never leaving this place alive unless I found a way to fight, or run, or something. The small creature hissed again, circling me, while the man's shadow stretched unnaturally across the walls, moving like it had a life of its own. The whispers rose into a cacophony, 1,000 voices all urging me to do something, but I didn't know what. And then I noticed it, the table in front of me. Not the one with the knife, another table, covered in plates of pizza, hot, steaming, and crawling with something dark and wriggling beneath the cheese. I gagged. My stomach churned. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. The man stepped closer. The creature grinned wider. The whispers grew louder, and the air around me felt wrong, heavy, pressing down, like the room itself wanted me to stay. I realized, in a sudden, icy moment of clarity, that I had walked into a trap I couldn't even begin to understand. And the trap had only just begun. I didn't know how long I had been sitting there, paralyzed with fear. The ropes bit into my wrists, my hands were numb, and the stench in the room was making me dizzy. My eyes darted from the creature to the man and back again. Both of them were waiting, watching, like I was some kind of entertainment. Then the man moved, slow, deliberate. He leaned over the table of pizza, and I swear I could see the shadows ripple behind him, almost like they were alive. He cut one slice from the pile, and the cheese stretched gooey and warm. The smell hit me, pungent, almost irresistible, and my stomach clenched. Couldn't look away. He held the slice out to me. "Eat," he said, voice low and chilling. "Or join us." I shook my head violently. Couldn't. I wouldn't. But as soon as I did, the shadows around the room started crawling closer. They moved like liquid, folding over themselves and over the floor, forming long, jagged shapes that stretched toward me. The creature on the floor hissed and jumped onto the table, landing on the slice with claws that cut through the cheese. Screeched, wet, gurgling, inhuman. The sound rattled my bones. Then it pointed at me. "You're next," it whispered. I realized, in horror, what the man meant by "join us." These weren't just human kidnappers. Something had possessed them, or maybe they were never human at all. My chest tightened as a cold realization hit me. I wasn't just trapped. I was bait. I had to get out. I kicked at the chair, trying to topple it, but the floor beneath me shifted again. Not like normal would, like the room itself was alive. I could feel it. The shadows twisted around my feet. Every movement I made was met with resistance, as if the pizzeria was trying to trap me permanently. The man spoke again, calm, almost gentle this time. "You don't understand. You'll feed us, or you'll feed them." I didn't know what he meant, but I understood enough. If I didn't comply, the shadows would consume me. My fear turned to nausea, my mind racing for any chance to escape. That's when I noticed a door. At first, I thought it was part of the shadows, but no. It had a handle, rusty, and a faint light spilled from the cracks beneath it. My heart leapt. I could make it if I could just get free. But as I lunged toward it, the ropes tightened, harder than before. My hands screamed in pain, and I fell to the floor, dragging the chair with me. The shadows surged. The creature leapt again, claws grazing my shoulder. I felt its nails pierce my skin, a sharp sting that made me yelp. The man laughed then, a low, cruel sound that seemed to echo from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You can't run," he said. "They won't let you. And even if you did, you'd still belong to us." I froze. Belong to them? My mind spun, trying to make sense of what he was saying. That's when the first scream came. Not mine, not the creature's. A human scream, piercing, terrified, coming from somewhere deeper in the building. The shadows recoiled for a moment, as if startled, and the man's attention flicked toward the sound. That was all the opening I needed. I twisted, rolling toward the door, scraping my shoulder across the floor. Pain flared, but adrenaline took over. I yanked at the ropes with all my strength. Something gave just enough, and I stumbled to my feet. I grabbed the handle, cold metal, smooth, real, and as I flung the door open, a flood of dim light hit me. I blinked against it, gasping. The hallway beyond was narrow, cramped, and crawling with shapes. Shapes moving in the shadows, writhing, whispering. But it was a hallway, path, and it led away from the back room, away from the man, away from the creatures. I didn't think. I ran. Behind me, I heard the low, wet gurgle of the creatures, the scrape of the man's knife against the floor, and 1,000 whispers urging me to stop. I ran, and for the first time since I had walked into the pizzeria, I felt maybe I had a chance. The hallway shouldn't have been that long. I sprinted until my lungs burned, shoes slapping against the floor, my heartbeat drowning out everything else. But no matter how far I ran, the walls stayed the same, narrow, greasy tiles stained with something old and dark. The light above flickered in uneven intervals, like it was struggling to stay alive. Then the hallway bent, not turned, bent. The walls curved inward slightly, like ribs closing around me. I skidded to a stop, nearly slipping, and pressed myself against the wall, gasping for air. The whispers came back instantly, not shouting, not screaming, whispering my name. I clamped my hands over my ears and squeezed my eyes shut. "This isn't real," I whispered. "This isn't real." Something brushed past my ankle. I looked down. A hand, gray, thin, with fingers too long, slowly slid back into a crack in the floor like it had never been there. My stomach dropped. I backed away, heart pounding, until my shoulders hit the opposite wall. That's when I saw the doors. They lined the hallway now. Old wooden doors, each one different. Some were splintered, some had peeling paint, and a few were nailed shut from the outside. Every single one had a number scratched into it. 01, 02, 03. They went on and on. A scream erupted from behind one of them. Raw, desperate, human. I rushed to it without thinking, grabbing the handle and yanking. Locked. I slammed my fist against the door. Hey! Hey! The screaming cut off instantly. Silence. Then a soft knock from the inside. 3 taps. I stumbled backward, shaking my head. No. No, no, no. A voice spoke through the door. Calm. Familiar. My pizza's getting cold. My blood ran ice cold. It was my voice. I ran. The hallway started changing again. The floor sloped downward, sticky now, pulling at my shoes like glue. The lights went out one by one behind me, plunging the hall into darkness. Something chased me. I could hear it dragging itself, nails scraping, breathing wet and uneven. I didn't dare look back. I burst through another door at the end of the hall and slammed it shut behind me, collapsing onto the floor. My chest heaved as I tried not to scream. I was back in the dining area, but it wasn't the same pizzeria. The tables were bolted to the floor. The walls were covered in photos, hundreds of them. People smiling, holding pizza boxes, celebrating birthdays. Every photo had red X's scratched over the faces. I staggered to my feet and scanned the wall. Then I saw it. Picture of me, taken earlier that night, sitting alone at a table, looking down at my phone. The photo was fresh, still glossy. Under it, written in something dark and sticky, were the words, "Order received." The ovens roared to life behind the counter. Too loud, too hot. The smell of burning dough filled the room, thick and suffocating. The shadows stretched again, pulling themselves off the walls, forming tall, crooked shapes with too many joints. From behind the counter, the man in the apron rose slowly into view. Except now he wasn't alone. Dozens of figures stood with him, some human, some not, all wearing the same stained uniforms, all smiling. "You ran farther than most," he said pleasantly. "That usually means you're special." My knees buckled. "What is this place?" I whispered. He tilted his head. "A kitchen," he said, "where hunger never ends." The lights cut out. Something grabbed my wrist. And the last thing I heard before everything went black was a bell ringing. "Order up." I woke up choking. Something rough was wrapped around my throat. Not tight enough to kill me, but tight enough to remind me I didn't have control. My vision swam as I sucked in air, the taste of smoke and grease coating my tongue. When my eyes finally focused, I realized I was lying on the floor behind the counter. The ovens were inches away. They were open now. Inside them wasn't fire, at least not normal fire. The heat shimmered wrong, bending the air, and something inside shifted slowly, like breathing. I scrambled backward, my hands slipping on the tile. That's when I saw my wrists. No ropes. For a split second, hope surged through me. Then I noticed the marks. Deep red indentations circled my wrists and ankles, like I'd been bound there for hours, maybe longer. My body felt heavy, weak, like something had been taken from me while I was out. I pushed myself up, shaking. The dining area was full now. Every table was occupied. People sat silently, staring down at plates of pizza in front of them. Their faces were pale, eyes sunken, mouths hanging slightly open like they were waiting for instructions. None of them spoke. None of them moved. A bell rang. Every head snapped up at once. Behind the counter, the man in the apron stood perfectly straight, hands folded. His smile stretched wider than it had before, splitting his face just a little too far. "Dinner service has begun," he announced. The people at the tables lifted their slices in perfect unison. I watched in horror as they bit down. Some chewed, some gagged, some screamed. One woman collapsed over her plate, convulsing, her jaw snapping shut again and again like she couldn't stop eating. A man across from her clawed at his own throat as something dark moved under his skin, wriggling toward his face. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. "What did you do to them?" I yelled. The man turned to me slowly. "Fed them," he said. "Just like you were fed." My stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. "I didn't eat anything." His smile didn't fade. "You don't remember?" he asked gently. "That happens sometimes." The memories hit me all at once, hands forcing my jaw open, something hot pressed against my lips. The smell, sweet, rotten, irresistible. I gagged and dropped to my knees, clutching my stomach. "That pizza," I whispered. "What is it?" The man leaned over the counter, his face inches from mine. "Leftovers," he said. I screamed. The sound echoed, but nobody reacted. The customers kept eating, chewing faster now, their movements jerky and wrong. I watched in pure terror as one of them stood up too quickly, skin tearing as something inside pushed outward. It wore his face like a mask. That's when I understood. The people who joined didn't stay people. The bell rang again. "Staff meeting," the man announced. The creatures stood. Every single one turned toward me. "You ran," the man said calmly. "That means you still think you're human." He stepped out from behind the counter. "But hunger changes that." The floor beneath me split open with a wet crack, and hands, dozens of them, reached up, grabbing my legs, my arms, my chest. I screamed and kicked, panic tearing through me as they dragged me toward the ovens. "No and oh please." The heat blasted my face. Something inside the oven shifted closer. Then, a crash. The front doors of the pizzeria exploded inward. Cold night air rushed in, extinguishing the oven glow instantly. The creatures shrieked, recoiling. The man's smile finally disappeared. Figures rushed in, people in dark clothes, flashlights cutting through the smoke. "Down!" someone yelled. A hand grabbed my arm and yanked me away just as the oven slammed shut behind me. As they dragged me outside, I looked back. The pizzeria sign flickered. For just a second, it didn't say the name anymore. It said, "Open." By the third week, I stopped counting the nights. Time didn't move right inside the station. I knew when it was 10 p.m. because the register said so. I knew when it was morning because the doors unlocked. Everything in between felt stretched, like the hours were being pulled thin. The customers started to feel familiar, not in a comforting way, in a pattern way. There was the tall one who never bent his arms when he walked. He always drifted down aisle 3, stopped in front of the bottled water, and stood there until the scraping above me began. Then he left. There was the woman with her head tilted too far to the side. She moved slowly, carefully, as if afraid her bones might slip out of place. She never bought anything. She just watched the counter from a distance. And there was the thing that came in soaked. It left wet footprints that evaporated after a few seconds. It stood near the bathroom door and breathed, loud and heavy, like it had run a long way to get there. I never saw its face. They came every night, always after midnight, always in the same order. I didn't acknowledge them. I didn't react. I followed the rules. One night I realized something worse. They weren't looking at the shelves anymore. They were watching me, not hungrily, not aggressively, like coworkers watching someone new, seeing if they were learning fast enough. At 1:26 a.m., the tall one placed something on the counter. I didn't look directly at it. Time card. Old cardboard. Grease-stained. Bent at the corners. My name was printed on it in faded ink. Below it were dates. Not past ones. Future ones. Week after week. Month after month. I slid it back toward him. The tall one didn't move. The ceiling made a low, please sound. He left the time card there. I didn't touch it again. The only house with its lights on was hers. Every night when I left the station, I checked. Same porch light. Same dim kitchen glow behind the curtains. Everything else on the street was dark. Not people asleep, dark. Abandoned, dark. No TVs. No phones. No movement. Just her house. I tried knocking again during the day. No answer. The door wasn't locked. Inside, the air was stale. The lemon cleaner smell was stronger now, almost sour. Her notebook was gone. The kitchen table was clean. No chair pulled out. No sign anyone had been there recently. But the light switch in the kitchen was still on. That night at work, a woman came in wearing her coat. Not just similar. Hers. The sleeves were too long, dragging across the floor. The buttons were done wrong. Misaligned like whoever wore it didn't understand how coats worked. She stood at the counter and stared past me. "You listen well," she said in the old woman's voice. I didn't respond. "You last longer than most," she continued. "That makes them curious." I kept my eyes on the register. Her reflection in the glass behind the counter was wrong. Her head didn't line up with her body. Her mouth moved half a second after the words came out. "They don't like loose ends," she said. I rang up nothing. The receipt printed anyway. When I glanced down, there was a message instead of prices. She left before it was ready. When I looked up again, the woman was gone. The coat was folded neatly on the counter. I didn't touch it. The ceiling made that pleased sound again. The station stopped pretending after that. The customers got quieter. The lights dimmed earlier. The breathing above me never stopped. It just softened, like something asleep but alert. At 12:18 a.m., Paul came in. He looked better than I remembered. Healthier. His eyes were clear. His posture straight. He leaned against the counter like this was any other job. "You're doing great," he said. I didn't answer. "You know," he continued, "people think quitting is how you survive. That's why they don't." He slid something across the counter. A badge. My name. My photo. The station logo printed clean and sharp. "Management," he said. "No more register. No more night shift." I didn't touch it. Paul sighed. "That's okay. You'll understand soon." The doors opened. A kid walked in. 16, maybe 17. Skinny. Backpack slung over one shoulder. Nervous smile. "I heard it pays good," he said. "Is that true?" I felt the ceiling shift. Not moving. Listening. Paul looked at me. Waiting. I followed the rules. I didn't warn him. I didn't lie. I rang up his soda and handed it back. "Just don't look up," I said. The kid laughed. The ceiling made a sound like settling weight. At 6 a.m., the doors locked. The open sign stayed lit. Paul smiled. "See?" he said. "You're already training. I don't work the register anymore. I don't need to. The new hires handle that. I stay in the office now, watching the cameras when they work, making sure the rules are followed, making sure no one looks up, making sure no one runs. Sometimes I recognize the kids, neighbors, classmates, people who walked past the station and thought the pay sounded too good to be true. The ceiling doesn't scrape anymore. It doesn't need to. The neighborhood stays quiet. The houses stay dark. The station stays open. Time doesn't feel real anymore. I still know what day it is, technically. The calendar in the office updates itself every morning. I never flip the page. It just changes when I'm not looking. The station doesn't sleep. It hums. Always. A low, steady vibration that settles into your bones if you stand still long enough. I used to notice it. Now it feels normal, like breathing. The new hires come and go. Most don't last more than a few nights. They're easy to spot, the ones who won't make it. They ask too many questions. They laugh when things get quiet. They look up when they hear something scrape. Those ones don't finish their shifts. I never see them leave. Their names stop appearing on the schedule. That's all. The ceiling stays calm as long as the rules are followed. It doesn't move much anymore. No sagging, no claws, no shapes pressing through. It doesn't need to remind us. Sometimes I watch the cameras late at night, not because I'm told to, because I want to know if anything changes. It doesn't. Aisle 3 is always slightly darker than the rest. The bathroom camera always lags by half a second. One of the ceiling panels never quite lines up with the others. If I stare too long, I get the sense something is staring back. Outside, the neighborhood hasn't recovered. People drive through sometimes, slow down at the intersection. They squint at the station like they're trying to remember something important. Most keep driving. Some don't. The job listing always works. High pay does something to people. Quiets the part of their brain that says this isn't right. I remember that feeling, standing at the door, knowing I should walk away, and not doing it. I make sure the open sign is bright. I make sure the doors unlock on time. I make sure the rules are printed clearly now. We don't cross them out anymore. That phase is over. Every once in a while, I think about the old woman, about how long she must have lasted to learn so much, about how close she got. I don't think about where she went. Some nights, when the station is full and quiet, I hear something familiar in the ceiling. Not scraping, not breathing. Listening, waiting, satisfied. At 5:59 a.m., I watch the doors unlock on the monitors. I watch the survivors leave, pale and shaking, convinced they'll never come back. Most don't. A few do. They always look relieved when they see me behind the office glass. Like seeing a familiar face makes it safer. It doesn't, but it helps them stay calm. And calm people follow the rules. The station likes that. The pay went up again this week. There's a new listing taped outside. I didn't put it there. I never have.